A strong start is everything, from what you do in your personal work, business work, and particularly client work. It shows up over and over again just how important onboarding is. It's the driving key to help your clients feel at ease, engaged, and empowered to achieve success with you, no matter how long the roadmap looks like. We're going to be covering that in today's video, and I'm going to walk you through my workflow that takes place, and I'll cover it through my tool that I use to run my business, which is SamePage. So I'm super excited to share it with you all, so keep watching the video, take notes, and subscribe for future videos just like this. Hey CEOs, welcome back. If you're brand new here, I'm Teresa, operations consultant behind LoopLink, and I'm here to help you complete the loop in your business operations and expand your agency with excellence. And I'm all about helping you shift from a CEO dependent to a systems dependent operations by leveraging your systems, people, and processes. And what we're going to be covering in today's video could very well be one of the top processes of your agency, the client onboarding process. So what do we talk about when we think about onboarding? So I'm talking about your client's very first experience with your creative agency, whether it's on day one, a couple of weeks, or spanning over a few months. However, when we talk about onboarding, we're focusing on the period of time from when your client has paid up to when they are fully up and running and leveraging your services or products. It's about providing that seamless experience that sets them up for success. A lot of people mistake that onboarding starts from the time a prospect says yes to executing the agreement and making the payment. That's more of a sales process or a conversion process. So why is client onboarding so critical? It deserves a ton of time and attention to get it right because the biggest thing is this: your clients just paid you, and they want to be reassured that they made the right choice and decision by investing in your services or your products. This is the moment that they're the most excited and can't wait to get started. They've invested in making this successful with you. So if you have the right client onboarding process, the client will be most engaged to make this work for the both of you. So how can you tell if you have a successful onboarding process? So a successful onboarding experience will leave your clients feeling confident in their choice, that they made the right investments to working with you or going through your services and products. They're going to feel that you are committed, equally committed and engaged in this process to help them reach their success. And also, as well as you are going through the onboarding process, if there's any errors that takes place or any delays that impacts the project timeline, they're going to be much more understanding of the adjustments and forgiving of any of the items that arises. A successful onboarding process will also leave them wanting to rave about their experience with your services and products, and they're going to be so excited about wanting to refer out your services. They can't stop talking about it. And one of the biggest distinguishments between a successful onboarding process and an unsuccessful onboarding process is that it's structured for success. So which means over and over again, repeatedly, that your clients are walking through and achieving their first value, getting through to the milestones successfully, and also as well adoption of your services. Now let's go over what an unsuccessful onboarding process looks like. So when you start off with a rocky onboarding process, your clients are going to, begin feeling concerned about their choice, whether or not they made the right investments. And shortly, they're going to also start feeling buyer's remorse. And that's where you're going to see that there's a risk of cancellation or a risk of refund within the refund period, for example. And not only that, if you had a rocky start to your onboarding process, this will create doubt in your clients' minds. And not only that, you're going to see that they're going to be nitpicking at every single detail. They're going to watch out for any errors, and all of a sudden they're going to be managing your process for you. And also as well, if the onboarding experience has been unsuccessful, they're not going to really talk about it. And they're not going to want to mention you or your services at all. And if your name does come up, they might be a little bit reserved or hesitant to talk about it. And most of all, the biggest distinguishment is that you're going to meet challenges for success at every way through the project. As you are setting up or reviewing your onboarding process, consider what are some of the goals that you want to achieve with onboarding. I think one of the most important goals is setting the objectives and expectations at the very beginning. Every client will have a different application, journey, and speed that they experience through your service. So you'll want to meet them where they are. Remind them what and why they enrolled with your services and enable them to be successful by reiterating your framework or process. You'll want to outline key milestones, boundaries to work within, and understanding what will drive success for the both of you. Again, it's success for the both of you. Another goal you'll want to aim for is to attain the information you need through the onboarding process. This is where you need to gather information from the client to understand their current situation, scenario, challenges, and what they tried, what's working for them, and what's not working for them. So a kickoff questionnaire can totally grab all of these information for you. And this is also the time where you'll want to be able to get access to their specific systems. By attaining the information you need during onboarding, it will reduce any delays that will affect the project timeline or scope, and it'll limit any scope creep. The third goal I think that is just as important as the first is to maintain communication. This is the time and space where you can communicate with your clients, the timeline, who are their key contacts on the projects, the deliverables, any risks to watch out for, and mainly to keep them informed. You'll also want to let them know when they can expect communication from you, and it makes you accountable to deliver on it. Alright, so that covers the critical aspects around onboarding. Now it's all about pulling the curtains back on my client onboarding process and how I manage it in my Same Page tool. Even if you're not using Same Page, this is a process that you can easily implement into your own workflow regardless of what tools you use. So one of the first key components that I always set up as I go into any new tools, no matter if you're working in Asana, Trello, or Basecamp, or even ClickUp, whatever is your tool of choice, you'll always want to make sure that you have your SOPs living in the tool that you are working in as well. You can definitely have it in a Google Docs, for example, but that should actually be your secondary backup. So in that way, you're going to make sure that if one tool fails, you will not be flying blind as well. And that will just also allow you to be able to migrate sufficiently going as you continue to grow. As you begin to start mapping out what your client onboarding process looks like, you're going to want to bring that SOP directly into your tool. And if you're able to work with a tool such as Same Page, where it allows you to create some internal documents in the platform as well, that's just going to be an additional benefit for you. So if you're able to create the document right inside your project management tool as an internal document, it's going to really accelerate how you operate and optimize your business processes. And so in here, for example, you'll be able to see my client onboarding process, who's involved in it, why we want to make sure that we understand the importance of the process, and when it's typically ran or executed. And also as well, within my processes and my SOPs, I also document what the flow chart looks like. And so here you can really see what our flow chart looks like for the onboarding process itself. So it starts with client announcement, and then it moves into project setup, and then we move to send the client welcome package. And within the client welcome package, typically it will provide the clients some action items on how to move forward in the onboarding process, which typically will direct them to schedule a strategy call. So here we see that the strategy call is scheduled, and then we move into the process where after we finish wrapping up the strategy call, that's where we're going to be able to reframe or update our project plan just so that we can manage the expectations and make sure that we are on point with the goals and objectives. And then it goes into the next sequence. Now, because my level of service is actually in systematizations and optimization of business processes. So for our own client onboarding process, what we do is we also have a period where we do process documentation, implementation and testing, and then measuring and improving. And the cycle keeps circulating until we have systematized much of their business processes. Now, this is just for the one-on-one client work that I have, but on the other framework, depending if you provide coaching or you provide training or whatever is the case, your workflow may look a little bit different at each one of these steps. Once these steps are outlined, that's where you're going to be able to then really dive into what your process steps look like. Now, when we touch base on the client announcement, that's where we're going to be able to see, okay, where does this whole process really start? And like I mentioned before, is that onboarding truly starts after the moment a client has completed and fulfilled their initial payments, and also as well the execution of the contract, which is in the sales or conversion process. So how I've set up my same page is that the moment a new client is onboarded, what happens is I have built in a Zapier where once payment has been recognized, what happens is it pings my client project, my overall client project, that there is a new client, and then it initiates the team to be able to create a new task for this client. So what we've done is we've created a new task that a client has been announced. And then what we need to start initializing with. So after we have the new client announcement, then we go into project setup. So our team would then go and create a new sub team, because we work as sub teams in same page, and then we would label it as the next component. So we would label it as 20, and then for this example, I'm just going to use Hulu marketing. And then the sub-team members of LoopLink, and that's perfect. And then we're going to make sure that it's a protected team. So you want to make sure that you have the right permissions whenever you are setting up your projects. So once we are there, then what I typically do is I copy over any other, usually I would have templates, and I would be able to create the templates. So if I click on new, I can choose from templates, and that's where I can actually select my project plan. So for example, choose this one. I'm just actually going to make this global. So now when I go back to my project, I can actually select it as a project summary and then create it from there. So this is where everything kind of really starts. And this is where we kind of really want to be able to break out and gather as much information as we can. A lot of this information should live on the contract or even in the sales quote. So what we would do is bring in the sales quote. We would actually add it as a file here so that everything just kind of lives all together, and then move through to identify what we can. So typically this process should stem from either the account manager or the sales rep. Whomever is responsible for that handoff should actually be the one who completes the gap and makes sure that information transference is being done and being executed. So you'll want to always make sure that you understand what are some of the struggles, what is the scope of work that it has been arranged and committed with the client, and make sure that you've also identified what are some of the success metrics. So for example, if you've taken on a marketing client and what they want to do is be able to increase their email list by 20%. So let's say they are at 200 right now and they want to go up to 300 subscribers on their list by the end of 60 days, for example. Those are some key success metrics that you've developed with your clients together. So you'll want to make sure that you bridge that gap and the communication is the same. And this is the perfect place for you to be able to really capture all of that. And so as you continue to move through this, you'll also want to be able to identify what's in scope and what's out of scope, and if there are any risks that will impact the deliverable and fulfillment of this project. Now, this is one component that a lot of clients throughout my last 3 years, this is a very, very small component that they've ever discussed with their clients, because it's a point of fear, right? They always have focused more on the optimistic side of the onboarding process versus really addressing if there are anything that may risk the success of the projects. And so as I work with my clients, I always encourage them that they need to be able to have that discussion with their clients. So in that way, everyone's all on the same page and understanding that, hey, if this client is in financial troubles, or that they're putting all of their eggs in one basket, which is your service, in hopes that your service is going to save them, that's a huge red flag, because then that means that they are on very tight margins. They don't have a lot of wiggle room in their cash flow. And so the whole pressure, the whole accountability, they're trying to force that accountability on on you. So you'll want to be really mindful of what are some of the risks that are coming towards your projects. So for example, as well, if you have a client where they are in a transitional period in their business. So for example, they are scaling or they are downsizing. Those are some of the risks that you need to make sure you've captured up front. And remember that not all clients will be forthcoming with that information. So you may have to dig with some questions to be able to get through it. So if that's the case, and if that's been some of the track records of your own clients, what you'll want to do to improve your process is actually make that as a standard question in your project summary, or even in your strategy call or kickoff call, to make sure you're capturing everything as needed. And also to be able to reiterate that trust, right? Is that they need to be able to trust you with that information so that you know exactly what you're working with, so that you can remove any blockage or challenges along the way, so that both of you can experience that level of success together. Now, once that is in place, that's when you're going to want to be able to have that strategy call. I always encourage you to have a questionnaire type, or even if you are working in a Google Docs or Google Sheet, whatever is the case, you'll always want to have a form style questionnaire to walk through with your clients on your first kickoff call or strategy calls. And that's going to allow you to capture all the right information systematically, repetitively, like everything's going to be done the same way. And that's what you considered as a productized service. So this all in all just helps you be able to move towards having that refined process over and over and over again. Now, one thing that I always make sure that every project has is an onboarding checklist. So in that way, we understand, okay, what are some of the deliverables that we need to do immediately, whether it's internal or client facing. So sending a welcome call is definitely client facing, but a lot of these steps are internal and should be done immediately. If your tool automates it for you, wonderful. If not, you're going to need to make sure that you do have checkpoints in place so that these steps are not missed. Also, as well, you'll want to be able to make sure that coordination of the onboarding and kickoff call is done, and any team members who are involved are aware of how it looks like, what they're responsible for, and what communication needs to be forwarded on to the manager or the person who is leading the call. So as we go down the checklist, we actually break it out by week. So in that way, we understand what are some of those bite-sized deliverables on a weekly basis. And this enables the team to be able to take action in bite-sized pieces and not feel overwhelmed. And it also limits the overwhelm for the clients themselves as well. And so by creating your own checklists in this type of format, you're going to see the success for your onboarding process. Now, even if you have an onboarding process in place, that doesn't mean that it's effective and efficient. A poor onboarding process can cost you at your bottom line. So having a successful onboarding process will result in an on-time and on-budget projects. To mitigate any risks to hidden costs, when you focus on making sure that you have a successful onboarding process, you're going to be able to improve expected transparency. So which means that you know from front to end what's happening from your team side and also from the client side. You're going to also be able to have really, really strong process controls. So which means any templates that is designated or checklists that are used in your onboarding process, it's going to be followed down to a T. Also as well, it's going to improve your ability to report on progress to your clients, which means communicating effectively where things are currently at, what are some of the delays, what are the risks, and be able to manage it accordingly. Also as well, having a successful onboarding process will allow you to automate a lot of those tidbits between each systems and allow you to have a seamless strategy all across and a seamless flow. Now, if you have an unsuccessful onboarding experience, this is where it's going to cost you the most. It's going to not only be delayed in your project timeline, but it's also going to be costly, not just only in time, but effort and energy. One of the results that can come with an unsuccessful onboarding process is poor communication. So it's going to be poor communication that is experienced on the team level, but also on the client level. And so you'll want to mitigate that. And also as well, one of the results from that is having unstandardized processes. Unstandardized processes really impacts the success of a onboarding process. And also as well, you're going to find that you're always going to be reactive instead of being proactive. You're going to be reactive in responding to clients because they'll probably be the first ones to reach out to you and saying, hey, what's going on? What's the status of this? I haven't heard from you for a long while. And so you'll want to mitigate all of those, right? And also as well, if you have an unsuccessful onboarding process, it's going to create a lot of redundancies and a lot of rework. So those are some of the key components that you want to really avoid when it comes to onboarding and how to be able to find the success for onboarding. Earlier, we've covered what unsuccessful onboarding looks like for your clients, but unsuccessful onboarding can also incur costs behind the scenes in time, effort, and money. It results in late onboarding efforts, over budget onboarding, and impacts your client relations. In a nutshell, you'll want to monitor your progress and always do a postmortem on how you can continuously improve and optimize your onboarding process. One of the key elements that I utilize constantly is automation and templates wherever possible. That will allow my team to know what is needed to jumpstart the client projects, gather the right information, and run fast with it. Now you know how important a client onboarding process is, and that's why I'm sharing with you my onboarding checklist so that you can adapt it into your own workflow and better optimize or improve your process wherever you can. Remember that successful onboarding processes not only delivers a wow experience to your clients, but it'll keep longer engagements, bring you raving referrals, and reduce incurred costs. So how does your client onboarding process look like? What can you improve today? Leave your answers and feedback in the comment section below. Make sure you download the free checklist. If this video has been helpful, be sure to subscribe, share with your friends, and hit the like button so I know to make more videos like this. I'm Teresa, Operations Coach Consultant, and I'll see you in the next one.